Hello, welcome to Best Way. I hope you all had a good and successful week. Today we're going to be talking about lipids, and which includes fats, oils, cholesterol, and we're also going to be talking about nuts and how important they are for your health. As you see, we're going into nutrition now. I hope after this lecture and the next several, you will want to change the way you eat. In your small groups, you can review your current eating habits and decide what changes you will want to make this week. There is so much confusion about fats. Uh, Understanding fats is a little bit complicated, but we'll try to remove a lot of the mystery. Lipids are biomolecule substances that don't dissolve in water. That's pretty simple. Lipids include triglycerides, which make up fats and oils, and which can be in either solid or liquid forms. The second group is phospholipids. We won't get much into them, but they are very important. They're found in all your cells. Steroids is the third group, which include cholesterol. I'm sure you all heard of that. And other important hormones like testosterone and estrogen. Waxes are not digestible, but they're also in the family of lipids. Now, certain fats are essential for good nutrition and health. Fats provide essential fatty acids, which the body can't manufacture. They also act as insulators to maintain body temperature, and they improve the taste of food and promote digestion. Fats also store energy and are packed with calories. Fats have 9 calories per gram, which is twice as many calories on an equal weight basis as carbohydrates or proteins. Again, we want to stress that fat is not all bad, of course. Some of the most important vitamins are carried in the fat we eat. These include vitamins A, D, E, and K. Now, there are 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So we're going to talk a little bit about a triglyceride. A triglyceride is made of two parts, a glycerol molecule attached to 3 long fatty chain acids. Now, triglycerides are what make up fats and oils. Fats like butter, lard, margarine are solid at room temperature and are used mainly by animals for energy storage, while oils are liquid at room temperature and are used by plants for energy storage. Now, whether a fat is a liquid or solid depends on how saturated or unsaturated the fatty acids that make up this triglyceride molecule. Now, saturated fats are fats in which the fatty acid chain here are all filled up with hydrogen. What that means is if you see right here, all these C's are carbon atoms, and all the available spots are attached by hydrogen. When we say saturated, they're saturated with hydrogen. Now, saturated fats cause an increase in blood cholesterol levels. Saturated fats are solid at room temperature. Like I said, they include lard, butter, but saturated fats increase your levels of LDL bad cholesterol, which leads to hardening of your arteries. This, of course, can cause strokes, heart attacks. They also decrease your levels of your good HDL cholesterol and increase your total cholesterol. The American Heart Association recommends you limit your saturated fat intake to 7 to 10% of your total calories. A monounsaturated fat is missing 2 of these hydrogen bonds right here. And instead, there is a double bond, see these 2 lines, between the carbon. Monounsaturated fats are very healthy for you. Monounsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature, but they start to solidify in the refrigerator. Olive oil, peanut oil, canola oil, and the fats in avocados are high in monounsaturated fats. Again, they're good for you. They decrease your total cholesterol and lower your LDL cholesterol levels. A polyunsaturated fat has 2 of these 2 or more of these double bonds. They are always in the oil state. They include corn oil, safflower oil. They're healthy oils, but they shouldn't replace your monounsaturated fats, your oils. Polyunsaturated fats are liquid in room temperature and in the refrigerator, and they help the body get rid of newly formed cholesterol. Now, I'm sure many of you heard about omega numbered, omega 3. What omega number means is on a fatty acid chain, it counts the number of carbons from the end of it to the first double bond, as you see right here. So over here, the omega 9 has 9 carbon atoms before the double bond. Omega 6 has 6, and omega 3 has 3 carbon atoms before you come to the first double bond. Omega 3, 6, and 9 oils are all healthy. And omega 3 especially, I'm sure, are good fats. You've probably heard of these. They lower your serum triglyceride levels, and they help even lowering your blood pressure. They're found in flax seeds, and flax seeds are a good vegetable source that you can even find them in supplements. Now here, right here, you have a monounsaturated fats, like that's common in olive oil. In nature, it has a bend right in the middle where this double bond is. And this is called the cis configuration. And in this configuration, this is very healthy fats to eat. Now, once you have the monounsaturated fat heated or manipulated, it can actually straighten out and look straight. And then it behaves almost like a saturated fat. This is what's called a trans configuration, and these are not healthy for you. Trans fatty acids come from chemical manipulation of unsaturated oils. Some hydrogen is added to them to make them more like a saturated fat. Why would you do this? Well, one of their advantages is supposedly to increase the shelf life. But the serious effect is that trans fats tend to lower your good HDL cholesterol levels. They also increase your risk of heart attacks and strokes. Where do you find trans fats? Pretty much in tasty fried foods. You can see them in French fries, burgers, pizza. Here's a little graph right here, which is helpful. It compares the degree of saturation of the different types of common oils and fats. Now, high monounsaturated fats are good for you. Remember, this light green right here is monounsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated fats are also good, and that's light blue right here. The high saturated fats and the trans fats are not good for you, and that's the yellow and pink. So if you look at over here, we look at canola oil, we see 64% monounsaturated, 28% polyunsaturated, only 8% saturated. This is a very healthy oil. Now let's compare that with coconut oil, 92% saturated compared to the rest monounsaturated. It's not that healthy. We're going to switch gears here and talk about nuts. Nuts as a food source are high in calories because they are high in fat. But the fat in nuts is monounsaturated and very good at reducing the risk of heart disease. This is the very first study which showed that nuts were so valuable in the diet. Dozens of studies since this first one have confirmed the importance of nuts in preventing heart attacks. Now this came from the data from the Advanced Health Study. And we will look in later presentations at this study. Now, this is a study of over 30,000 Caucasian Californians aged 25 and older. They were first enrolled in this study way back in 1976. Specific foods in the diet were documented. The population was followed for many years. To increase the accuracy of the results, the people studied were carefully controlled for pre-existing diseases. Also, habits, diets, and exercise patterns were also documented. This is the information that caused an initial shock to the investigators. If a person eats nuts 5 days a week or more, the risk of a heart attack is reduced by 50%, as you see right here. Surely this couldn't be true for everyone, This prompted a much more careful analysis, a slicing and dicing of the data to see to whom this was true for. The first thought was this might not be equally true for both men and women. But as you can see here, eating nuts 5 times a week or more reduces the risk of a heart attack by 50% in both men and women. Next, the analysis focused on the interaction between blood pressure and heart attacks. High blood pressure blunts the benefits of eating nuts. There was only a 20% reduction in heart attacks among people who eat nuts and who also have high blood pressure. But a 20% reduction is still an advantage, and people with high blood pressure should eat some nuts. Now, there was no or almost very few current smokers in this population that was studied. So they were lumped with former smokers to create a ever smoked category. Now, those who have used cigarettes had the same benefits from eating nuts as those who never smoked. This was true if people ate nuts over 5 times a week. Here's the data regarding nuts in those who were overweight and obese. Now, if you remember, overweight is a BMI greater than 25 and less than 30. Obesity is a BMI greater than 30. This analysis looked at normal weight people and compared them to overweight. Increased body weight does reduce the benefits of eating nuts, but not by too much, as you see right here. Now we have seen how regular exercise reduces the risk of heart attacks. There is a beneficial synergistic effect when exercise and nuts are combined. There was almost a 60% reduction in heart attacks among those who got more exercise and ate nuts 5 days or more a week. Now we look at age. This is surprising. Eating nuts 5 days a week or more reduces the risk of heart attacks by 50% in both young and old, those under 80 and those over 80. There was a large vegetarian population in this study. It was felt that perhaps the benefits of nuts was limited to the vegetarian group that ate healthy all the time. This was not the case. Both vegetarians and non-vegetarians equally benefited from eating nuts 5 days a week or more. Here again, we see a 50% reduction in heart attacks for those who eat nuts regularly. Now, in this study, the researchers did not know what kind of nuts the people were eating. The original questionnaire simply documented how often people ate nuts. It became necessary to send out a supplemental questionnaire to the people who ate nuts to find out just what kind of nuts they were eating. Here are the results. The most common nut was the peanut. Now, peanuts are not real nuts. Real nuts grow on trees. Peanuts are a member of the bean or legume family. Peanuts have the same good fats, though, found in tree nuts and are just as good for you. Studies on almonds, walnuts, cashews, pecans, and other nuts show that all of them are beneficial. It is not useful to try and find the very best type of nut. All nuts are good for you and will reduce your risk of a heart attack. This shows the comparisons of the different nuts and their calorie content. Cashews have 22 calories per nut compared to pecan and Brazil nuts, which have 4. This table compares the nutritional value of several kinds of nuts. Although there are minor differences, it's important to see that all of them are low in saturated fats, as you see right here. All nuts are high in calories, and for obese and overweight people, an ounce of nuts per day is sufficient. An ounce is 28 grams, and an ounce of nuts may have up to 200 calories. Now, another question that comes up has to do with dry roasting versus oil roasting nuts. Here's the comparison of pecans prepared in various ways here. Oil roasting nuts does not add any significant calories to nuts. Nuts don't soak up much oil. Only a very thin coat may stick to the surface, and it isn't enough oil to alter the overall calorie content of the nuts. However, adding salt does make a difference in the sodium content of nuts, which are usually pretty low in sodium. Eating nuts regularly can also prevent the development of diabetes. This study looked at nuts and peanut butter. This data was from the Nurses' Health Study. This was a large study of over 80,000 women from 11 states who were middle-aged at the onset of the study. Only women without diabetes, heart disease, or cancer were included in the study. At the time of this analysis, these women had been followed for 16 years. Look at this. The risk of diabetes is reduced by nearly 50% by eating 1 ounce of nuts 5 or more times a week. Here's a quote from the conclusion. Higher consumption of nuts and peanut butter was associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes in this large cohort study of women. Our data combined with clinical and epidemiological data support potential benefits of increasing nut consumption in reducing type 2 diabetes risk. Here's a study in men. These were all physicians. Sudden natural death is always due to heart disease. This looks at sudden cardiac death and the relationship to nuts in the diet. This study was of 22,000 male physicians who were middle-aged at the enrollment. These men were healthy with no signs of disease at the beginning of the study. The follow-up was done yearly. This shows other factors that were measured during this study. How much their cholesterol level, smoking, meat, vegetables. Now, look at this. Notice the benefits of nuts. This shows that there was a reduction in sudden death if you ate greater than 2 servings a week of nuts. So the take-home point is eat more nuts and also use more unsaturated, mainly monounsaturated fatty oils, and cut down on your saturated oils. You'll have fewer heart attacks. You'll be less likely to die suddenly, be less likely to develop diabetes. In the South, we like to joke about how they put pork in everything, even in your green beans. We should start thinking about putting nuts in everything, your oatmeal, cereal, salads. Just a reminder, eat less fat, but eat better fats and more nuts. Avoid snacks between meals. Eat less, especially during supper time. Pray for motivation and strength to do best way. And call your group leaders. Read your scripture assignments. Thanks.
So I want to thank Dr. Elvin Adams for being here with us. We consider it a privilege, and we have a few questions to ask you, Dr. Adams. And the first question we want to ask is we hear a lot of promotions about keto and the keto diet. What can you tell us about the keto diet and how does it work?
Yes. Well, first off, I want to thank Dr. Abraham for that scholarly presentation on fats and nuts. He covered it very, very well. And
Absolutely.
Since there's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, if you want to lose weight, you can lose it faster by cutting back on fat better than anything else. Now, the keto diet is actually not new. It's been around a long time. The Dr. Atkins diet was a keto diet, and the keto diet consists of a high fat diet. And if you have a lot of fats and are not eating carbohydrates, your body gets to the point where it burns fats. And once fats get shorter and shorter, they become ketone bodies and give you ketosis. And when you have ketosis, you don't feel quite as well. It gives you a bit of anorexia. Some people actually get nauseated, and it's called the keto flu. You feel tired. You develop constipation because you have no fiber in your diet. Because it has some acidotic properties, it can give you osteoporosis, and it raises your cholesterol because you're on a high fat diet. And the truth is, yes, you can lose weight on a keto diet, but you lose weight on any diet when you eat less calories. So if you eat less, whether it's a keto diet or whatever, you will lose weight. And people that have looked at multiple kinds of diets when they have looked at the keto diet in relationship to other diets at the end of 3 or 4 months, the weight loss with all of them is the same.
Okay, thank you for that. So would you recommend keto diet since it affects different people different ways?
And the simple answer is no. I recommend the Best Way diet. The Best Way diet is really a low-fat diet, high in complex carbohydrates, moderate fat that's good for you. And we recommend a moderate level of protein, but we like people to eat lots of complex carbohydrates. And that will become more and more apparent during this program. So no, I don't recommend the keto diet.
Okay, another question here. Cells normally use carbohydrates for energy. When carbs are not available, they can use fat for energy. As fats are broken down, they leave ketone. Oh, that's the answer I'm reading. Okay, all right. I'm sorry about that question. Don't high fat diet tend to affect your cholesterol as well?
Yes, when you're on a high fat diet, it does raise your LDL cholesterol, and it will tend to aggravate the development of hardening of the arteries, which can give you heart attacks and strokes. So stay away from a high fat diet.
With that, I want to thank you, Dr. Elvin Adams, for being here with us. We consider it a privilege, and want to thank you once more for introducing this Best Way program so we can follow this Best Way diet, and it has benefited me, myself, my wife, and many others, including those that are online with us tonight. So I want to say thank you again, Dr. Elvin Adams, for sharing with us, answering those questions. And with that, we are going to move on to our exercise tips with Dr. Laura Lucas. And last week, one thing I took away from last week, she was sharing about breathing. And one thing I remember with the breathing, she said, is the roses and the candles. I remember that. You inhale through your nostril like you're smelling roses, and you exhale through your mouth like you're blowing out candle. Did I get that right, Dr. Lucas?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so with that, we're gonna have Dr. Lucas now share some health tips.
Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit more about other ways that you can continue to progress your burst training. Again, the goal of burst training we need to keep in mind, and that goal is that we are trying to increase our respiratory rate and increase our heart rate. It is an aerobic activity. So as you are looking for ways to increase your aerobic exercise, let's just look at some different possibilities. However, let me give you this word of caution. Please only choose one way to increase your aerobic exercise in any given session. You can overdo and you can try and do too much too soon. So please choose only one way to increase your aerobic exercise. Last week, we spoke of increasing the length of each burst to try to make it a couple seconds longer, 2 to 5 seconds longer. This way, this week, I want to focus on other ways that you might increase your burst training. So we started with bursts of 20 to 30 seconds in length, and you can increase by 2 to 5 seconds in length, but you could also add another burst session in your exercise session. So if you began with 3 burst sessions, you could increase that to 4. If you began with 5 burst sessions, you can increase that to 6. So that increased burst length that you began last week, you can keep that as you continue to increase and add another burst session. Besides the length of the burst session and the number of bursts in an exercise session, you can also increase the number of days of burst training in any given week. If you started at 3 days a week, you could increase to 4 days a week. If that is easier for you than changing the length of your exercise session, you could just add another day that you are doing burst activity. You can increase your speed. I hinted to this last week. You can try and find a regular landmark on your course and see if you can go a little bit further in your next burst session. Or you can change the terrain. If you began burst training on level ground, you can add a hill into your course. Also, you can change what exercise you're doing. If you just were able to start by sit to stand and continue to do sit to stands and you felt your heart rate and your respiratory rate go up, maybe now it's time that you move into that walking program, again, with your doctor's understanding and approval. Or maybe you need to move to jogging bursts, maybe biking with bursts, or in this cold weather, maybe you don't want to go outside. So maybe you could try using a jump rope inside and doing a jump rope or burpees or mountain climbers. Again, I would not recommend that you move to these activities without doctor supervision. But assuming that your doctor has cleared you for exercise, these would be other ways that you can work on changing your activity level. Remember the goal. The goal is to get your heart moving, get it beating faster. You should be out of breath at the end of each session, unable to easily talk in a complete sentence. When you slow your pace, your breathing should return to normal before you begin another burst. As you continue to do this, you should realize that your breathing will normalize more quickly after each burst exercise. Your heart rate will return to its resting pace faster. Stay consistent with this and you will find that your resting heart rate will slow down. And that will be another way to show improvements in your health status besides just the numbers on the scale. So I want you to continue to work at your burst training, continue to work at progressing yourself. And I look forward to hearing the results of your activity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lucas, for that very informative lecture and burst sessions. And that reminds me, that's similar to how a baby grows. I just have a granddaughter, and each month she add to her activities. She could just lay. Now she can sit up, then she start hold her bottle, then she start doing, so she keep adding. And that's how we grow as humans. So it's a similar thing you're sharing here. We add to, and each time we add, our body adjusts to. That's why we can speak better in the next burst session than the previous one. I want to thank you for that. And we all know that our health, our spiritual side of us and the physical side, they are connected. Because if you're healthy in body, but yet you feeling sad and full of anxiety and feeling down, it's no good. You're just as bad as if you were physically sick. So we're gonna look to Chris Anderson now for our spiritual health. And so we're gonna spotlight Chris Anderson as he share some nuggets about our spiritual health.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's good to see you. And wanted to share with you about the work that you're doing so far. I mean, you're putting a lot of effort in, entering into your online scorecard, the data that you're doing every day. You're exercising, you're eating differently. You're really making some solid effort. With all of this effort, if you're eating right and you're exercising and you're following these principles, there still is something that could be happening where you won't experience change. And the Bible actually gives us a secret into how that this thing can affect you. And it's this little thing called stress. How many of you guys are ever experiencing stress? I mean, it could be financial stress. It could be relational stress. It could be you're watching the news too much and there's a lot of stress. There could be a lot of stressors. Stress releases a number of things in your body, but one of them is cortisol. Now, cortisol is good in an emergency because it causes all the sugar, it causes sugar to rush into your bloodstream. It takes it from your muscles and other places. And it puts this sugar in your bloodstream that your body can use for energy to fight off a bear or whatever. You're stressed. And so you need this extra energy. And so it releases into your bloodstream. But if you're continually stressed, like day after day, like pressed and stressed, that sugar is going to be in your bloodstream and your body's going to be like, wait a minute, I don't need this here. And it's going to start storing it. And it's going to store it as fat, excess, extra energy to use for later. So your stress could actually be undermining your entire effort of eating healthfully and exercising. Stress could just kill it all. And the Bible tells us, as I've shared with you every evening that we've been meeting, in 3 John verse 2, beloved, I wish above that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. There's principles in the Bible that can teach us directly on this particular issue of stress. So I want to look at a little story here with you in Mark chapter 4. Jesus had gotten into the boat. It had been a long day, and they were headed across the lake together. And the Bible tells us here in Mark 4 and verse 36 that they took him into the ship, and there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship so that it was full. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever been on a lake or something like that when there's a bad storm that comes through. I live right by the Tennessee River, and we went canoeing one day, and I was out there with some friends of mine, and we had just gotten a little bit away from the shore, and the wind started to pick up a little bit. And then I noticed the mountain, the ridge of mountains runs on the west side of the river there. And I noticed along the mountains, some clouds began to hover close to the mountains, and they began to flow down the valleys like a white waterfall. It was really interesting to see. These clouds came down the mountains and started flowing out across the river toward us. And I thought, well, that's really weird. And then all of a sudden, this wall of wind just hit us. Whoa! The waves started crashing, and we had to get the canoes to the side, back to the shore. The wind was just more intense than I've ever seen. I mean, on the Tennessee River is not that big. There was almost 3-foot waves crashing into the shore. I stood on the shore and I was leaning forward. It hadn't started raining at this moment, but I was leaning into the wind like this, and the wind was so strong, it was just holding me there. I mean, it was just incredible. We had to hold the canoes down. Somebody was holding the canoes down so they wouldn't blow away in the wind. I mean, it was terrifying. Imagine being out on a lake at night with an incredible storm. These disciples were fishermen. I mean, they knew how to handle boats. They knew how to handle storms. This must have been a bad storm. I mean, they were working to save their lives. And there's something interesting the story tells us in verse 37. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship so that it was full. I mean, that must have been a bad storm. And Jesus was in the back part of the ship, asleep on a pillow. And they said to him, "Wake, master, don't you care that we're going to die?" Now, how could it be? The disciples were afraid for their life. They were terrified. And Jesus was at peace in the midst of that. In fact, his head was on a pillow and he was resting. Jesus was able to go through circumstances peacefully that would cause us stress. Jesus had something that he knew, something that he had that could give him peace, and stress just could not tear him apart. Like, I don't know if you've had stress so bad, but you just feel like it's tearing you apart inside. You can't sleep. It wakes you up at night. You're just laying there. I mean, you're just stressed. This stress is going to affect you and it's going to undermine your health. Jesus gives us a principle in Matthew on how to deal with stress. It's incredible. This is in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 25. And Jesus says this: "For this reason, I say to you, do not be worried." Don't stress as to what you're going to eat or what you will drink, or for your body as to what you will put on. Is not your life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow and they don't reap. They don't gather into barns. And yet God, your heavenly Father, feeds them. Now, Jesus used those words, your heavenly Father. So Jesus had an understanding that God in heaven isn't just a powerful being that's up there somewhere that made us. He had the understanding that God is our Father. He was his Father. And as his Father, he could trust him completely. The omnipotent, all-powerful God, he could trust his life in his hands. And so Jesus is telling us here that he is also our Father. Isn't just Jesus, he's our Father as well. He says, your heavenly Father. Let me find my place back in the text here. Okay, he feeds them. Are you not worth much more than they? And who of you, by being worried, can add a single hour to his life? And why are you worried about simple things like clothing? Look at the lilies, how they in the field, how they grow. They don't toil or spin. And yet I say to you that Solomon, even in all his glory, could not clothe himself like one of these. But if God clothes the grass of the field, which is today alive today and tomorrow thrown into the furnace, will he not much more clothe you? Well, we don't need to stress. We don't need to worry. Jesus teaches us that we have a Father who knows our needs, and we can be at peace in this circumstance. And so peace, Jesus wants to give us. So this is a Bible principle I hope you can apply this week as you face whatever stressful thing you're facing. Realize that stress wants to undermine your experience, but Jesus has something better. He has a peace for you through it all. Pray for you that God will bless you with peace this week.
Thank you, Chris, for that very encouraging words there. As you are speaking, I feel upbeat already, and I'm not up yet to go to work. That's most time the most stressful part of many people's day, especially if it's cold outside and snowing and raining. One morning, it reminds me, one morning I was going to work, I was late, I was fussing, I was stressed. And as I was driving to work, people were going slow. I was getting angry. I was going past a pond, and I saw some geese just cruising along, just having their fun all time. I looked across and I said, wow, that quieted my spirit. And I said, man, if God can give them peace, he can give me peace also. So I want to thank you very much, Chris, for that very encouraging word. How to deal with stress if we trust our Heavenly Father. Okay, so at this time, we are gonna move on to, I would say my favorite part of the program. When it comes to food, I like that. The culinary highlights, and that will be done by Rachel Detweiler. So we're gonna highlight Rachel as she shares with us some culinary stuff.
All right, give me 1 second here. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Let's see. I'm gonna hit play here. Good evening, everyone. Is it cold enough for everybody yet? I'm from Missouri, where it gets much colder, and my family are experiencing some of those delightful planned power outages since they have a negative 27-degree wind chill. And so I'm thankful right now that it's not as cold here. I keep telling them they need to move south with us. So tonight I'm going to share with you a couple of recipes that actually have nearly the same ingredients. Maybe this week you had a chance to see Amy Nelson's video that she put up to make pancakes. These are another chance for you to use oats and bananas. And so I'm going to share them with you. It's kind of funny because we were visiting family one year, Christmas time, and I was devastated that I had to keep eating oatmeal and bananas because that's all we had. So I started looking for different ways to use them, and this is what happens when you get stuck with the same thing over and over. At least if you're in my house, we will change the way to use it and eat it. So this first recipe is a breakfast cookie. And literally these are the only ingredients that you need: really ripe bananas and oats. And it's very, very simple. All you're gonna do is mash up the banana, and then you add your oats. And the lovely thing that you can do with this is at this point, you can customize it any way you want. You could add raisins. You can add that extra fat with adding some peanuts or some peanut butter or some walnuts, which would be also delicious. Dates, you can add a couple, you could add 2 ingredients or more just to give you some more texture to these cookies if you like. And then you just put them in balls, and the 2 bananas and 1 cup of oats makes about 6 good sized cookies here. And you just want to make them into equal sized balls and then press them down. The flatter that you have them, the better they're going to cook. They'll get chewy on the outside if when you bake them at 350 for about 20 minutes. The original recipe that I had actually called for them to be baked at 12 minutes. So if you like things a little underdone and you like it kind of gooey, maybe you would want to go with that direction. I prefer it a little more chewy, so, and a little bit more toasted. So that would be the direction that you would want to go for that. And they come out like that. And in these, I didn't add any extra mix-ins, but again, feel free to add them in. It makes them extra good. I think the front one I might have added walnuts at the end. I didn't show a picture of that. The next recipe is another very simple recipe. It calls for water and a banana, 2 cups of oats, and I like to add some flaxseed into these. I don't always, but it's a good way to get some of that beneficial fat from the flaxseed. These have actually become a staple in my home, and I've actually made hundreds of them at a time for VBS at our church. So, and I've added different things to them as we've tried them over the years. I've put cinnamon and vanilla in them, but the banana is naturally sweet, so you don't have to add any sweetener, so you can put the toppings that you like on it, like blueberries or strawberries when you're done. And let's see, it's really simple. You just take those ingredients right here and you throw them in a blender. And you don't have to have any special blender for this. Just blend it until it's mostly smooth. And that's as simple as it is. And I tried 2 different waffle makers. I bought this little one at Walmart. They were about $10. And I had success with this recipe with them being gluten-free waffles and just using oats. You're not going to have the kind of rise that you would get in flour waffles. So you would want to use something that's going to be more of a classic waffle maker that's going to give you a thinner waffle so they get done better. And these work okay for that. They did come out, they take a little bit longer than I prefer waiting for a tiny waffle. I tend to use, this is my favorite waffle maker of all times. It's a Cuisinart classic waffle maker. If you do not have a waffle maker, or if you don't like waffles, which I don't think there's anybody who doesn't like waffles. I mean, my husband tells me there might be, but I know there's people who don't like pancakes, but I think everybody likes waffles. So it's worth investing into this waffle maker. And like I said, I've made hundreds of waffles with them and they hold up really well. And it makes a really nice thin waffle. Nice and crispy. So you just pour in your waffle batter into these into this waffle maker, and it comes out crispy and brown, and you can serve it. This has blueberries on it, kind of a different color for blueberries and strawberries, and that's a delicious way to eat it. It's also, they're a great vehicle for using nut butter. So if you want to put a little bit of peanut butter or a little bit of almond butter or whatever you like on there, just use sparingly. A little bit goes a long way. And again, delicious with topped with fruit. So very simple ingredients that probably everybody has in their house right now. So please try one of our 3 recipes with the pancakes included. And that's what I've got for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. A lot of people are intimidated by vegetarian or plant-based cooking or preparing plant-based meal, but you shared some of the simplest yet healthy meals, and it doesn't have to be a long drawn-out process. It's quick and easy, and I really appreciate that. One thing though, technology got its limitations. It does cater to your sight and to your hearing, but oh, I wish if it could do something about our taste, because I would really love to taste some of those waffles right now. So I want to thank you again, Sister dear Rachel Detweiler, for that presentation. And now we're going to do a few more announcements. And I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so you're going to go to Best Way right here. And you go to lesson 4 to get some of workbook right there, or you can go to healthy cooking, and you can see different videos there. See Amy doing pancakes, and you have there other videos you can share. You can see Chris amazing granola. You can check that one out. So those are some of the things we can check out this coming week as we continue in our Best Way program. And thank you for being with us. And remember, good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better best.